Hey Overcomers, welcome to Overcoming with Jennifer, my weekly Q&A. Today's question is specific to how to manage triggers from the narcissist when you're in a situation where you're dealing with them in court. The person who asked this question is having to represent themselves in court, which I'm sure those of you who have done that, or even those of you who can imagine that, know what a trigger that would be, okay? So even when we are far along in our recovery, continuing to have to see the narcissist will trigger a trauma reaction, and especially if it's a high conflict situation, right? So in court, when you're dealing with child custody and child support and those types of things, there's also a lot of, emotions riding on that, right? You're fighting to protect your children and yourself. If you're fighting for justice against this person who has repeatedly manipulated you and abused you and attempted to show you that you do not have power, that they have all the power. So very intimidating, but also a trauma trigger, which is what I want to focus on. This is something that we need to take seriously, not as just, oh, I need to learn to control my emotions. I hate that he makes me so angry. You want to treat this as what it is, which is a trauma trigger. Your body is going into fight or flight mode, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, as if there was a real danger threatening your life. This is something, as we know, trauma is held in our bodies, in our physical bodies. So ultimately, any solution to this, not that we can make it totally go away. I'm sure if you're still going through the divorce process, it hasn't been that long that you've been separated, you're still close to the trauma. So I don't want to mislead anyone to say that we're just going to totally make this go away to where it's not triggering at all. I still get triggered at times, although not nearly as intense as I once did, So this is an ongoing process, so we're not going to eliminate the emotional response at all, but there's a lot of things we can do to help lessen the effects so you can be fully present and in your body to represent yourself in court or to deal with whatever other challenging situation you're dealing with the narcissist, with co-parenting. So because trauma is held in our body, as I was saying, we need to address this with interventions that address our body, right? So I talk about how the art process with art therapy, or even just doing some of these art techniques on your own, not formally with a therapist, but I teach you how to do it on your own to where you are literally healing the brain through accessing the right and left sides of the brain, through making artwork, through opening up your emotions in the right side of the brain, and then through the journaling process where we bring it back into more of your cognitive brain. I talk about the feeling brain and the thinking brain. We want to connect the two, and we can heal trauma in that way and get a lot of new insight, okay? So that is one technique to try, which I will go into an example of that in a couple days in my art task video on this topic. But I also want to talk about other techniques that I am not an expert in, I am not trained in, but there are things that you could look into, all right? So we've talked before about EMDR therapy, which is a trauma treatment that can be very effective in honing in on especially one particular traumatic incident. So for example, if you've had another experience with the narcissist in court that was traumatizing to you, or something else where they sort of won in a sense, they successfully exerted their power over you and you felt helpless, something like that might relate to your current situation in court. You could address that specific traumatic memory, that feeling that you have in your body when you're experiencing that sort of conflict with the narcissist, but something that you can sort of grab onto, either a feeling in your body or a memory. You can process that with a therapist who is trained in EMDR. So you can go online. I always suggest to search for a therapist. I always suggest going to the Psychology Today website. I'm not endorsing them by any means. I don't even currently have a profile with them, but I have in the past. And so you can go to their therapist finder and search in lots of criteria to narrow your search. And so you can choose EMDR as one of the modalities that therapists use. You can put in your type of insurance, all that type of thing, gender, so you could go search for example, for a female therapist who is certified in EMDR and works with those who have been divorced or with narcissistic abuse, okay? So you can narrow it down and find people in your area or maybe just in your state, and you can meet with them virtually online who specialize in this. And that'll be a great way to prepare yourself before the court proceedings to really heal some of this trauma in your brain more quickly than some other modalities. Another one that is related is EFT tapping. So again, this addresses the body. So with tapping, the practitioner who is trained, I don't know what the certification is for that, but they will guide you through thinking of whatever that feeling is. For example, maybe it's anger or anxiety that you want to target, and they'll walk you through kind of saying some statements that are contrary to that, in terms of you having control over the emotion, right? Accepting it and then having control over it. And you will tap, you know, there's different parts of your face or of, you know, that you're tapping. I've heard this is one point, you know, there's different points that you will tap as you say these things, as you think these things. But any of these treatments that really target our body and the trauma held in our body are effective in preparing us to approach these situations where we would otherwise go into fight or flight really quickly. And as I said, the art is one way to do this, and that is something that I am trained in. And so in a couple days, I will share with you an activity that you can do ongoing as you prepare for this court experience. One other thing is that I want to go back to is, so in the moment, because we're talking about an intense situation, like specifically in court, is you want to do things in the moment if you're feeling anxious in that situation with the narcissist, whether it's a mediation, whether it's a court appearance, or just some other conversation you're having to have with them. You want to be grounded in your body in that moment. So you want to do things that are going to ground you. You want to focus on your senses, right? That's one way to get in your body. So focus on what you can see, what you can smell, what you can touch. You could have something to fidget with to keep you grounded in that, to feel that texture, to keep you focused on your body. You could focus on your breathing during that time. Count your breaths, like while they're talking or whatever. You know, stay in your body. You could even have a piece of candy like a mint in your mouth to keep you focused on that. You want to do things that are going to keep you in your body and out of this sort of dissociation or, you know, being so caught up in your feelings. You want to stay grounded where you are in the present. And in a couple days, like I said, we'll come back and talk about an art activity also that you could do in preparation.